Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Saturday Evening Post Week in Review. My name is Chris Wakefield, and I am the marketing manager for the Saturday Evening Post.
I'm Nicholas Gilmore, and I'm a staff writer at the Post.
I'm Troy Brownfield. I'm also a staff writer.
We are hurtling toward 2019, but first we want to close out 2018 real quick. Again, you can become a member of the Saturday Evening Post for only $15. That gets you a one-year membership to the Saturday Evening Post. 6 new issues of our magazine every single year, exclusive member benefits, access to our online archive, and a whole lot more. All of that for only $15. SaturdayEveningPost.com/subscribe. Also, if you don't want to look at our faces, or if you want to look at Troy's face, you can listen to the Week in Review. Well, would you rather me say you? You can listen to the Week in Review on your favorite podcast platform. This exact show is also a podcast, or if you're driving on the go, driving to grandma's house for Christmas, you can listen to the Week in Review. Apple, iTunes, Google Play Store, everywhere else, we are a podcast. All right, so, Troy, coming up, we're in the holiday movie season, a lot of movies out, and you wrote a piece on the website about Aquaman and why he should be taken more seriously.
Yeah, first of all, a studio isn't going to spend essentially hundreds of millions of dollars on a character that they don't think can carry a film. And, Aquaman has a...
Daredevil.
Yeah. He's got a history of, being written off as the guy who talks to fish. And, that's kind of the pop culture easy comedy punchline for that. I mean, you could just as easily say, Batman's an angry orphan or all these reductive things about these different characters. But, if you go back and you look at the history of the character, there's a lot of interesting stories that have been told with him. He's been really popular for a long time. Even during that period... from the end of the 40s, where superheroes weren't quite as popular, people always say, well, Batman and Superman were still being published. So was Aquaman. He never went away.
So what's the main reason why he should be taken seriously?
Well, one of the things that writers have done over time at DC is that they've really worked a lot to build up the fact that, this guy's royalty. He's got a much bigger power set than you think of. He's taken seriously by the other heroes as both a ruler and a thinker. And so there's a lot of work that's gone into giving him kind of an equal characterization. He's most often played with, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman as one of the kind of leaders of the wider universe of heroes, and they've done a lot to explain and back that up. And so when you see him show up in a movie like Justice League, that interpretation, the long-haired, bearded interpretation, was kind of the 90s version where they made him more Poseidon-like. And started putting a little bit more heaviness on the character.
How much of this is reflected by the popularity of the actor, Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman? Because he is, this guy is the next superstar, it seems like.
I think it's like what the British call champagne casting. It's where you have a role that is really particularly suited to a person, and when you find them, and they just fit together incredibly well. To use a superhero example, Christopher Reeve was a perfect Superman. When that was just, you had a guy, or Chris Evans as Captain America.
Right.
You find a person, and when you're looking at that, Momoa has been this type in other projects, be it Game of Thrones or TV series he's done like Stargate Atlantis, and so he plugs in really well with the physicality. He's also, he's Hawaiian. He played a lifeguard on Baywatch when he was 19 years old. This is a guy that's got a lot of bona fides that feed toward that presence. He just plays it well,
and he's good looking.
Yeah, he plays it funny
that
too.
Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. He's a really good looking dude.
What? It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
Are you going to see Aquaman?
Yes.
Okay. Well, did you have a preconceived notion of Aquaman before all this, before the latest film came out, or?
No, I didn't know who Aquaman was.
Okay. So there's a case to be made that a whole new audience is being introduced to this superhero and his canon because of this.
World.
A whole new world.
One might say.
We'll do Aladdin next week or next year.
Up where they walk, up where they run. In fact.
Yes. So you can read Troy's piece over at.
He just got it.
I was thinking Aladdin. You guys are doing Little Mermaid. I think I can show you the world as opposed to a whole new world.
So Aquaman was Ariel's father, though, right?
No. Oh my gosh. Read Troy's piece, SaturdayEveningPost.com. Speaking of sexy people and sex, Nick, you have a piece going up on the website about the sexual revolution in America.
Yeah, so I think most people would look at the 60s as a time of a sexual revolution in America. And so we have, yeah.
I was gonna make a joke. I'm
Sure.
sorry. Go ahead.
In all facets, I mean, from the birth control pill to attitudes toward, previously considered deviant sexual behaviors, the culture changed. But so we have our old editorial section called Speaking Out. We had Arno Carlin wrote in 1968 that the sexual revolution is a myth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was, Speaking Out contained a lot of contrarian voices, usually pretty controversial views. But he made his case that since behaviors among college-age students, or college-age people, and people more broadly, hadn't really changed that much, there had been a steady increase in the percentage of young people and people in general who had sex, more frequently for, maybe more promiscuously, whatever. But he was making the case that it wasn't this revolution that a lot of people were claiming. But he wrote this in 1968, and then in like the 10 years that followed that, a lot of events would kind of like dispute the opinion that he brought forth, like a lot of gay activism, starting in 1969 with Stonewall and continuing through the 70s. And,
So you're here to beat this guy up some more.
No, because the thing is, I think he was focused on behaviors when a lot. Now looking back, it's easy to say anyone in 1868 was wrong,
Right.
or misguided or whatever. But I think when most people look back at the sexual revolution, they look at like general attitudes in the culture around sex that certainly changed. I wasn't there, but I've talked to a lot of people.
A lot happened, and especially in the late '60s, between the political movements, the women's lib movement, the sexual revolution. So it was a very tumultuous time, and things moved fast.
Right. I think that some of it got derailed in the 80s. Like Nick commented on, it was happening in the 60s and the 70s, but you had this kind of rise of the moral majority. In fact, they helped Reagan get elected. And then you had hearings on everything from like adult films and all of this. The AIDS crisis happened, and so there are all these things that freaked people out.
More.
Yeah, not just about all these different things that were being covered in hearings and so forth, but by the things that weren't being mentioned. The fact that Reagan didn't mention AIDS by name until 1985, and by then it was the genie was out of the bottle. And so there's all these different things that got derailed. So I think that it would be almost more interesting to have seen that piece written in 1988.
Yes.
To see what happened. Is like this revolution did in fact happen, but all these things kind of crushed into it that slowed down some of that social progress that was being made.
Well, and now we have, just last month, the cover story for The Atlantic was about the sex recession that's currently happening. Younger people and people in general are having sex less now. And the writer attributes that to a lot of different things, tech, global events, just...
What about they're tired? Like all these people in their 20s are working 2 or 3 jobs.
Right, and in school and whatnot. So you can look for Nick's piece coming up real soon over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. Also over at SaturdayEveningPost.com this week, Troy, you have a piece that's about Christmas songs, the new Christmas songs.
Right, it's talking about the new Christmas canon, and some of this you already hear on the radio stations that play like the 24-hour Christmas music and so forth, but it's about...
No, I don't.
Going... Well, some people will listen to them. But if you go a little bit deeper, since the 60s there have been the introduction of a lot of new songs and a lot of new things that, some people still haven't added to their rotation. So it's really talking about just... that there's still people making songs for Christmas, but it's not going to be in that traditional vein.
What's your favorite of the new bunch?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Probably Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues, which is 1987 admittedly, but it's still, when you look at it, it's really focused a little bit more on the melancholy and the hopefulness of the season at the same time. Plus, it's very, very Irish in terms of its outlook, and obviously the Pogues and Christy McCall, who sings co-lead with Shane McGowan on that, being
right.
UK performers, but it's still it's got a unique flavor and it's just fun.
Nick, of the new Christmas songs, What is your favorite, and why is it Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You?
It's not.
Oh.
Although that is a
You owe me $5.
Was that your bet? Tried to lead me into that one. No, I don't know if this is on your list, but I like the one I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
I think I want to say Dr. Demento or something.
That's
sounds familiar.
Well, and like
Been
I would
around
hear
for a
that
while.
on the radio all the time when I was a kid, and then somewhere along the line, my dad started whistling it, and he never stopped for like 20 years. Literally year-round whistling that song every day.
And the new Christmas songs are just as catchy and just as earwormy as the classics, right?
Yeah, and there's a really interesting and kind of underlying sad part of this. A lot of it stems from the album that was made, The Christmas Gift for You from Philly Records in 1963, and that's where Darlene Love's Christmas Baby Please Come Home comes from. But it was produced by Phil Spector, who, is a genius producer, but is now in jail for murder. And, over time, his wall of sound approach influenced a lot of artists like Brian Wilson and so forth. But when you hear Spector in Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, Kelly Clarkson's Underneath the Tree, Gwen Stefani's stuff, all of those things are influenced by Spector's wall of sound technique, by having like lots of horns and all these different things. So a through line of a lot of these popular songs is they do come from 1963's Phil Spector recordings.
If you want to see the list of the songs and get lost in the YouTube videos, you can visit Troy's piece over at SaturdayEveningPost.com. Now, it is time for my favorite part of the week, where I get to take all the anger and frustration I have and let it out to you, the audience. We call it Don't At Me, things that are getting under our skin and getting on our nerves. Let's start with Troy. What's pissing you off this week?
Directly related to the article that I did. I talked about the fact that there are some songs that you can kind of grandfather into the Christmas season, even though they aren't Christmas songs. But there's one song that people keep trying to make a Christmas song that is not, and that is Hallelujah by Leonard
Slow
Cohen.
Ride. Oh.
Yeah, Slow Ride by Foghat. We don't talk enough about Foghat. But anyway.
Baby one more time, isn't it?
Yes, no. So Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. Great, beautiful song. I'm a big Leonard Cohen fan. But really what happened with this is there's a version of that song that, for whatever reason, the Osmonds did, and they changed the lyrics to be a Christmas song, and now there are lots of people that have covered just the straight Leonard Cohen version, and they play it at Christmas time, and it drives me crazy because it's substantially not a Christmas song. In fact, one of the things that was kind of interesting about it is Cohen had, it's standard, like a 5-verse song, but he had about 26 different verses that he would switch in and out and play differently at live shows. But it was really about disappointment and loss and all these different things. And now you've got people trying to make it into a Christmas tune.
So in between segments, we discovered that the people at the table next to us here at Minnesota Brewing have this large freaking snake. And for those of you listening to the podcast, I'm sorry you can't see this, but at some point,
Picture a big snake.
The snake may move into our shot, so don't freak out if you see the
They're
snake.
not gonna freak out. It's a video.
Well, maybe they're concerned for your safety when the snake bites your head
How
off.
sensitive do you think these viewers are?
Nick, what's on your mind this week?
Yeah, so the Washington Post reported about this new trend of employees ghosting on their employers. I'm sure you heard about this.
Right.
I'm sure I've done it a few times.
Well, and I think ghosting is something that a lot of us are familiar with these days, whether it's romantically or in friendship. I mean, I've done my share of ghosting.
Right.
But as far as an employee ghosting on an employer, of course you would. Like, why not?
Employers will do it to you without hesitation.
Yeah,
Right?
they have all the power. Like, why would this even be an issue?
They tend to call it firing, though, when they do it.
Yeah, but it can be just as instantaneous and without
Or
reason.
A
or
lot of
cause.
people have made the point of like you'll get like 2 interviews and then you get ghosted. So
Right.
it's like
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh,
maybe
yes.
it's the employer getting
Where you think you've
a
done
taste of
well,
their own
and-
medicine.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on this one here. Real quick, mine don't at me. It's kind of a personal one. You will both know I have a kid on the way. I bought my kid a Chicago White Sox apparel. I'm a big White Sox fan. I bought my baby a onesie. My daughter will be here right around the start of baseball season. Someone said, she's only going to wear that one time. You got to throw it away. don't rain on my parade.
Yeah.
Let people enjoy things. I think that this happens a lot, especially, and I've been talking with parents over the last few months, and what's it like being a parent? What's hard? What's easy? And there seems to be this like Schadenfreude of like, your life is gonna suck. It's gonna be miserable. Just like, I'm having a baby. I'm happy about it. Let me enjoy it, please.
Well,
Like,
what are you supposed to only dress them in cheap clothes for the first 2 years of their life? Like,
I might
right.
actually do that, but it was just like this. The first reaction from this person was, "They're only gonna wear it once, Why'd you do that?" It's like,
Right. I mean,
Who was it?
I burned 20. I'm not gonna say. I'm
Look.
not gonna say. I burned $20. Let me have fun. Come on.
yeah, I mean, I've got 2 kids, and there's a little bit of truth to the fact that they grow really fast. And
Right,
so a lot of
yes.
times when people buy an outfit that's like 0 to 3, it's going to go really quickly, especially since all the baby gifts tend to be 0 to 3.
Right.
Like there's very few forward thinkers in the world of baby showers in terms of sizes and stuff. So yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that, but that doesn't mean that because you bought it that it's not fun, that you aren't looking forward to it, that you aren't going to take pictures, that it's not going to be a fun thing to have.
Let people enjoy things.
Yeah.
Nick, where can we find you online?
I am on Twitter at Darwin Jr. with a Y.
Also on Twitter at Troy Brownfield.
And you can find me at Wakefield Report. You can find the post everywhere at Saturday Evening Post. Really quick, really special week next week. It's the coming of the new year. I almost forgot what year. It's 2003. It's going to be 2019 coming up. So next week, tune in. Instead of the week in review, we're going to do our 2018 year in review right here at the Saturday Evening Post. That's all we have this week from Arizona Brewing, and we'll see you all next week.